We are April and Scott, creators of NaughtyGym.com, and this is The Naughty Gym Show.
For years, we've been fitness and nutrition coaches to thousands of people through our commercial gyms and online platform. We've also spent nearly a decade in an ever-evolving open relationship.
This show brings together two of our biggest passions, fitness and sex positivity. Our mission is to maximize the physical and mental health of anyone brave enough to explore relationship structures that run counter to societal norms.
We have demolished our old ways of thinking about relationships, and from that rubble, built a life full of happiness, adventure, and vitality. And now we want to help you do the same.
So hop on the treadmill, start the show, and let us teach you how to never stop playing.
Will you do something for me? Please? You just picture your life for me? 30 years from now, 40 years from now? What's it look like? If it's with that guy, go. Go! I lost you once. I think I could do it again. If I thought it's what you really wanted. But don't you take the easy way out.
What easy way? There is no easy way. No matter what I do, somebody gets hurt.
Would you stop thinking about what everyone wants? Stop thinking about what I want, what he wants, what your parents want. What do you want? What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want? God damn it. What do you want?
I have to go.
Welcome back to The Naughty Gym Show. I'm your host, April, and this is my co-host, the only man who thinks Swedish fish is a food group, Scott.
Well, at least you had one this time.
I did. And I'm not wrong.
And it's a delicious food group. All right. So coming up in this episode, we're gonna get to some things that's been going on with us here shortly, but we're going to talk about in this episode why it is so difficult to know what you want in life or in the current moment, and also how that affects us in non-monogamy and our lifestyle journey. So we're going to talk about how childhood and culture train us to want what's safe, not what's true. We're going to discuss why your brain might be protecting you by predicting your emotions before anything even happened. The top 3 mistakes people make when trying to name what they want, why non-monogamy doesn't make desire clearer, it just makes it louder. And then we'll end with some tools to help you start figuring out what it is you actually do want. So if you've ever said something like, I don't know who I am, or I don't know what I want in life, this is the episode for you.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty common for women, but we'll get into that later. First, we just want to give a little update on what's been going on with us. So for the month of June, we celebrated Pride Month and we put out an episode every week. Now, all of a sudden, it's July. And so back in May, we said we were kind of taking June and July and August off as far as like travel. And we were kind of expecting it to be a little bit calmer. Scott's mother was having hip replacement, so we knew we would kind of be moving into a caregiver role for her. But it just seems like the last month or so, everything's kind of, the universe has just fucked with everyone. Like all of our friends, everybody who was like, yeah, this summer's going to be super chill, has not been chill for anybody.
No, and my mom's hip surgery, which could have been a fairly routine surgery for a healthy person, but she's got a platelet disorder. And so we've been in the hospital 3 or 4 days a week for 4 or 5 hours at a time for multiple weeks in a row, just trying to get her platelet count up with infusions.
Yeah.
Not to mention, she finally had the surgery. There were some complications, and after they released her, she got
blood clots.
She got a couple of blood clots in her lungs,
yeah.
And we had to go back to the hospital. She was in there for a few more days, and now she's at home and trying to recover. So that's been fun.
Yeah, not fun, but she seems in better spirits. She's on the mend.
She's out there trying to recover most of the day by herself.
Yeah,
not able to get around real well. She's struggling, but she's doing okay.
And we've got our oldest who's been living with us. He just bought a house. He closes tomorrow. We've been trying to help him navigate that and the loans and moving and all of that stuff. And then just feeling heartbreak for our friends who are dealing with some things. And it's just kind of been, it's been a tough 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We have not been as present on our social medias. And if you're wondering, that is why. We've just it's hard to find the bandwidth. So we have said how perfect it was that we had no travel planned, that we had canceled all of our travel so that we could be present. and we could be available. And that's been a really blessing. I don't know if that's the word.
We'd have had multiple events going on during this time of the year. I don't know how we could have managed it.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been tough. But we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Things are looking up.
And we do, before we launch into this, how to figure out what you want in life episode, we do have some events coming up. And April's going to run through a list of those.
We actually so we've been talking about doing this for a while. We do some local meet and greets here in Huntsville, Alabama, where we will do like a free meet and greet at a martini bar. And, all of our events are connection focused because we want to make sure that people have a space just to connect in a low pressure environment. And so our coaches, Matt and Cara, pitched an idea to do a Pacific Northwest meet and greet out in Oregon. Naughty Gym is going to Portland, Oregon to do a free meet and greet meetup. We're not charging anything for it, but it's going to be August 15th. And it's going to start with a picnic at Sauvie Island, which is a clothing optional beach in Portland. And anybody's welcome to go to that. We'll have a landing page with all the links to that and the details and the itinerary and stuff like that. And then that evening of August 15th is Saturday night, Club Pravada in Oregon, in Portland. They have a Naughty Gym theme night. So sweat meets seduction.
You're going to be wearing your sluttiest gym clothes.
And again, we'll provide the links because you'll go onto their website and purchase your tickets and stuff like that. We're not making any money off of this. This is just an opportunity for you to connect with like-minded people in a no pressure. And I know we don't typically do events at sex clubs, so this is a little bit outside of the box for us. But again, we've been to sex clubs. We haven't really played, but still it's an environment where you can connect with others with no pressure. You don't have to have sex at these events, but you will meet people who are like-minded. You can just go to the meetup at Sauvie Island on the beach, or you could just go to Club Pravada and meet everybody up there, or you could do both. So we'll have a landing page on our website at naughtygym.com for you to check out that and get all the details. We still have availability in our Mancation Mountain men's retreat and our Wild and Wise women's menopause retreat. So right now for the women's Wild and Wise, we have 28 women already signed up to go. I think we have like 4 rooms left. You can book those or book a Zoom for either Mancation, the men's retreat, or the women's retreat at naughtygym.com under our events tab.
And I think we have the same number. I think we have 4 beds left at the men's retreat too, but it is not about menopause.
Right. No, it's not. But they're both November 13th through the 16th. So it's a Thursday through a Sunday. But if you're looking for people to connect with that are like-minded, these are great retreats for you to go to. The women's retreat, you do not have to be in the lifestyle. The only requirement is that you're sex positive so that you're okay being around people who are bisexual, lesbian, straight, open, monogamous, non-monogamous, whatever.
And we have our holidays event that actually comes like 2 weeks before those retreats, also in the Smoky Mountains. That's been sold out for a while. But if you're interested in it, you can always submit your email address and we can put you on the waiting list. However, we do have still lots of rooms available at Be Better at Being Bad in Jamaica. It is always the first full week of the calendar year at Hito.
Yep. So January 3rd through the 10th of 2026.
Full takeover. This is not a group event. We are in charge of the whole resort for that week, and we put a huge itinerary together, educators and incredible parties and fun events and all that sort of stuff. So you can go to their website and check that out and read all about it and book your room.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So we're going to start this show with each of us are going to tell a personal story.
We are?
Well, you were supposed to think of one.
Oh,
maybe
gosh.
You'll think of one while
I hope so. I don't
doing
know.
mine. Where we experienced something in our lifestyle journey that we thought we wanted, but then when we got it, realized either wasn't what we wanted or maybe not as great as we thought.
Okay.
Because it's very difficult to know what we want, not just in life in general, but in non-monogamy, especially when we're just getting started. But when we first got into it, and we've said this before, but repeat it again today, that we had a huge circle of friends already in our vanilla life. We weren't looking for friends. We were just looking for the fun newness of being able to go out and meet other people. And then if there was an attraction, maybe it would end up in a playroom or the bedroom or something. So just having sex with somebody else was new and exciting. We even made jokes that we didn't care if we even knew people's names.
Yeah.
And we tried that a little bit in the start of our journey, and we quickly realized that was not the route we wanted to go. Not that we didn't ever enjoy any of those moments, but they were never as fulfilling as when we made real connections with people that we really liked.
Yeah.
Because when that happened, if there was intimacy, it always seemed much deeper and more rewarding, more fulfilling. And not that there's anything wrong with recreational sport fucking, but it's just never seemed to be
our cup of tea.
Yeah. And we thought for sure that's what we wanted when we first started.
Yeah.
So we were wrong.
Yeah.
All right. What'd you think of?
So that's your story?
Yeah. Is that wrong? Is that a bad one?
No, that's good. We're both so connection focused and community oriented that we need to have those connections. So I don't know how we missed that so big. But that was a huge miss for us. I really, honestly, I can't think of anything else like that in that realm that I thought I would want, but ended up not. And that might be because I don't know what I want.
What about the...
I know what I don't want. It's much easier to say what I don't want than what I actually want.
Is what you don't want something you originally thought you would want?
Possibly. It's kind of like, I've tried that and I know I don't like that.
Which is like an example.
Well, that sex without the connection. I think, at the beginning.
Orgies?
Yeah, orgies for sure. I think at the beginning of our lifestyle journey, I was doing things because I thought it would give you an opportunity to have more experience. And I was more sexually experienced than you were at the beginning. And so I think I was saying yes to things for you. And not even like consciously, I think subconsciously, I was like, well, I've had worse. So how bad can this be? And that ended up being a detriment to my mental health.
Well, and it may be that the fact that you didn't know or weren't clear with yourself about what you did want made it so much more likely that you would agree to do something that you didn't want.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to talk about some key factors that influence this struggle of knowing what we want with some gendered dimensions. So social conditioning, women are often socialized to be people pleasers, right? To be caretakers, to be good girls, which can lead to external orientation where choices are made based on other people, what other people expect rather than what our inner truth is. Men are often socialized to suppress their vulnerability and emotional depth, which can make them kind of disconnected from their deeper emotional wants.
Yeah, and you kind of see this. I've seen this a lot with women. Like you were talking about earlier, how you were saying yes to things you didn't want to do, really, because you weren't clear with yourself and what you didn't want. And you were so focused on making sure I was happy.
Yeah.
It's that people pleasing thing. I've seen that so many times with women talking through the problem they have with saying no and stopping and really understanding what it is they want.
Right. Well, and they don't want to hurt feelings. But Carol Gilligan, she's a Harvard psychologist, showed that adolescent girls in particular begin to lose their voice as they become more attuned to societal approval and relational harmony than their own internal compass. So, and I can look back on my childhood and see this clearly, like hindsight's 2020, where I can say, I stopped using my voice. You look at little girls that are like 4, 5, 6, 7, they'll just say what they want, what they don't like, but as we move into like preteen and puberty and our teenage years, we start getting all of these societal pressures to be a good girl and don't ruffle feathers and please people and take into account everybody else's emotions and what everybody else wants and what they expect from us and the shoulds. You should do this and you should do things this way.
As a father of 2 daughters, I saw that carefree spirit when they were younger start to get dimmed as they went through maybe some of their teenage and college years. And I think, I know for sure my oldest daughter seems to have gotten over that hurdle. My youngest daughter is heading that way, thankfully.
Yeah.
But it's hard to see them go from these smart, free-spirited, fun-loving children and watching the expectations of society sort of put a clamp on that liveliness.
Yeah. Well, especially if you grew up in like a really religious home, with
Which
purity culture,
Yeah.
you're told that sexuality isn't something you should explore. It's something that as a woman you give to your husband, and you should be satisfying your husband and pleasing him and making sure that he's sexually satisfied. It's nothing about your own pleasure. And so I can remember, as I was moving into parenthood, this was my job. I'm a mom, and my job is to make my husband happy and to satisfy him and have sex with him when he wants it. That obligatory sex. It wasn't about what I actually wanted and what felt good for me.
Yeah. And with men, this idea of like regulating their emotions, not showing emotions as much, because a lot of times that will manifest as toxic masculinity. Guys think they need to act big and rough and tough, and I'm the protector, I'm the breadwinner, I'm the one that kind of runs my household, that sort of thing. And if that's what both of you genuinely want, fine. But sometimes that seems to manifest in a less than engaging personality.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard to know that is that even what you want. I mean, I'm still to this day, when you ask me, what do you want? I'm like, I don't really know. Sometimes it's hard for me to answer that question. What do you want? Our desires as women, professionally, sexually, or even independently, have historically been framed as dangerous, selfish, or improper. Like, how dare you? You're a mom. Like, you can't act like that. I mean, well, just the fact that when we were outed as swingers, I took a much bigger public hit than you did because you're a man.
Yeah, right.
And that was okay. My motherhood was under attack.
Right. And I never faced any of that.
Right.
Not that, but nobody ever
said
said
you're a bad dad because
you're a whore
like
and you're a bad father. I never once heard that, but you heard that numerous times.
Oh yeah. And my children received messages. I mean, it wasn't just me, and so we start self-silencing, and feminist scholars call this internalized self-silencing, where we start just suppressing it and just not talking about it.
Because it works. Like if you silence your actual desires and wishes, you become more acceptable or more palatable to your culture, to your society, your community. And that turns into a feedback loop. If I shut my mouth about what I really want, I'm going to have more friends and be more approved by my community. And so you learn to act that way.
Yeah.
Even if it's subconscious, and you learn to suppress what you actually want.
Yeah. Dana Jack coined the term silencing the self to describe how many women suppress personal desires to maintain relationships. So what do I need to do to feel safe in this relationship, or to make my partner feel safe in this relationship?
Yeah, or to prevent my partner from leaving me.
Yeah.
So you'll silence those things again.
Yeah.
You'll
or thinking that I am a sexual deviant, or there's something wrong with me.
Or sexual deviant. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with that. So.
Well, I know that now. I don't even think it's a deviant. I think everybody has these underlying sexual desires and wants. We're taught that we shouldn't express those. We shouldn't explore those. We're taught to silence them. And it just becomes a second nature. So men, on the other hand, they may not lack the clarity about wanting power, sex, and success, but often they lack the awareness of the deeper emotional or relational needs like connection, safety, and purpose.
And, that's sort of beat into us as we grow up. There's certain ways that a man should act in the face of certain circumstances, and anything other than that is unmanly.
Yeah. Psychologist Niobe Way's research on adolescent boys found that young men deeply value emotional intimacy with friends, but begin to suppress it as they age to conform to masculine norms.
Yeah. So again, you have this natural tendency to want these connections with friends, and then society's pressures cause you to start drifting away from those things because it helps you to fit in.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that we're trying to undo and unlearn as we do our men's and women's connection circles and these retreats. The Wild and Wise and Mancation is we are trying to break down those walls and those thoughts that you can't be emotional and you can't be vulnerable in front of other men. Because of the friendships that I had as a child with my best friend, Gina, I always craved that kind of deep connection and friendship, and was never able to find that in the vanilla world. And I think for men, and even looking at my boys and their friends or their best friends, it's really difficult for adolescents, I think, to make those kind of friendships, maybe especially now with the age of like electronics and the phone and stuff like that, where they can just kind of hide behind social media and stuff, that they're not making those really deep, vulnerable connections at a young age anymore.
Well, men and women sort of have different challenges here. We've outlined that women tend to be people pleasing and men suppress their emotions. But that's not a 50-50 thing. In other words, in my experience, especially in the lifestyle, that problem manifests more often in a bigger way with women than it does guys. Guys seem to be able to let their emotions come out in a lifestyle environment a little bit easier than women have being able to turn the people-pleasing switch off. Would you agree with that?
I don't know. I don't think I would agree with that.
So you think that there's just as many men that have problems,
struggle with vulnerability,
in
as
the lifestyle,
women that struggle with people pleasing? 100%.
Okay.
In fact, I think that's my biggest block in connecting with men in the lifestyle is their inability to open up and be vulnerable and have real conversations that connect. Because I don't want to talk about superficial bullshit. I don't want those superficial conversations. I want to connect in a real vulnerable way. And I think men still really struggle with that.
All right. So one of the things that happens is, and you can see this as a parent, we don't really, or at least I didn't, and I think most parents don't either. We don't really teach our kids how to desire things. We don't focus on sitting down with our children and go, what do you want? What is your big desires? What things would you like to do today? Mostly we teach them to behave or perform.
Right.
Like we put rules in place. We have our scripts and our gender expectations, and, they want their parental approval or they're scared of punishment. And all of those things weigh heavily on the mind of the child and start to craft the way they behave. And they have nothing to do with helping them learn to express their desires. It's only showing them how to play the role that they're handed.
Yeah.
And that carries over into our adulthood, and it becomes something that's sort of ingrained into us, and it's very hard to shake it as we get older. And I'm sure you and I have both felt it, not just in our regular life, but in non-monogamy.
Yeah. I don't know that we teach them not to have desires. I think children are born having desires and expressing those. It's how we react to them that shows them that it's not okay for them to explore those desires. And I just listened to a podcast called, I think it's like Call Me Daddy or something like that. And Charlize Theron was on it. And she was talking about how she cusses in front of her children.
Did she mention me at all?
No, I don't think so. I haven't finished it yet though. But I'm a big proponent of cussing in front of my children as well. But she was talking about how she cusses in front of them and doesn't teach them that it's a bad way to express yourself, but it gives them something to look forward to. When you're this age, you can use these words too. And fuck is a really expressive word. And sometimes we don't have any other word to use but fuck. And so if kids start asking questions like, well, why can't I say the word fuck? Or they come home from school and somebody said the word blowjob. And what's a blowjob, mom? Instead of acting shocked or like, oh my God, don't say that again. We don't talk about that. Those are things we don't talk about. Those are the kind of conversations that silence your kids, teach them shame, teach them that you are not a safe person to talk about these things and explore these things instead of giving them space. What do you think about it? And allow them to have critical thinking.
Yeah. And acting the way we act, like you're talking about, the way we respond to our kids' questions, even the tough ones, it can teach them to just hide those questions growing up. And so you become this adult who's afraid to say what they want or afraid to ask certain types of questions because you don't want to feel like you're, too much to deal with, or you're over the top or high maintenance. And we get that way and we don't even realize it. And you can see it in just even the simplest things like get a group of 5 or 6 friends together and you're going to go to dinner and everybody try to decide where you're going to go. And nobody wants to be the one to pick the restaurant. Nobody wants, and And you can't even figure out why you don't want to be that person, but it's mostly because you're performing.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the person that upsets anybody else's or picks a restaurant they don't like.
Right. Yeah.
So instead of embracing what you want and just saying, hey, I'd like to go to the best restaurant in the city, that's Captain D's. And everybody's not going to agree with you, but at least you've said it, and you might find out everybody else loves that kind of food.
Yeah.
too.
I mean, that was hard when you and I got together, because in my previous relationship, I loved sushi. And I knew he hated it. And so when he asked where I wanted to eat, I wanted sushi, but I wasn't going to say I wanted sushi because I knew he didn't like it. So I would go through the list in my head of his favorite restaurants, and I would start suggesting, well, what about this one? Well, and knowing he liked all of those. So there was, not going to be any backlash. You're really good about, like, you don't like sushi either, but you're like, yeah, if you want sushi, we can go there, and then we can go somewhere else and I can get something that I like. So even though that seems small, that's just another example of why it's hard for us to know what we want, because we're taking in all of these external factors. Like, if I say what I want, how are they going to respond? Is it going to be okay? Is it going to be shamed? Is it going to be, am I going to feel stupid?
Well, and like you said, that's a small thing, the restaurant.
Right.
But we fight it so hard, and we're not probably aware of exactly why our body's revolting against the idea of picking a restaurant. And that's a little thing. When you get into lifestyles or non-monogamous situations, it can be amplified, or even the stakes are higher.
Right.
Because it's bigger. You're not just talking about a restaurant now. Now we're talking about our relationship,
right,
and other people being involved, and trying to express your truest sexual desires to your partner is always going to come with this worry of, well, what if I say too much? What if I'm too into somebody? What if I'm pushing their boundaries too hard and they get mad or hurt or want to pull away from me? And, I have felt that, even though I've always kind of considered myself fairly open and willing to tell you what I want or like, but I still sometimes dial back.
Yeah. Well, we just had a conversation recently about you dialing back, because I knew that there was a couple women that you were really into. And I told you, I'm like, I want you to feel comfortable telling me that, like, because I can feel when you temper it back a little bit. And then in my head, I'm going, well, why isn't he actually telling me how hot he thinks she is? Is he doing that because he's hiding something, or he is afraid he's going to hurt my feelings? But in the back of my head, I'm like, I know he thinks she's super attractive. Why isn't he just saying it?
I mean, and that's true. It's not because I'm afraid of saying it.
There's nothing inherently wrong with saying
right.
it.
I just don't want to, it's not hurt your feelings, but I don't want you to feel any jealousy or, feel.
So you're trying to protect me.
Right. And so we end up in these high risk situations. And I don't know if everybody would call non-monogamy high risk, but much higher risk than picking a restaurant.
Sure.
We tend to default to just trying to make ourselves want what our partner wants.
Yeah.
So that it's easy to digest that way.
Yeah.
So it's not really what we want. We're just trying to smooth the road and make it easy for everybody, and just say that we want whatever it is our partner wants, even if that's not really what we're after.
Yeah. So when you, oh gosh, I don't even remember when it was that you presented wild love theory to me for the first time. It was around Christmas time, because it was April Gets Her Stocking Stuff, that episode where you were like, I am giving you the keys to the castle. Yeah. You're like, I'm removing all boundaries or limitations from you, and you're free to do whatever you want. And I mean, that shook me to the core, because I was like, I actually don't know what I want. And it was almost like this existential crisis. And then when we left El Salvador and we had that 14-hour drive home from Dallas here, we talked the whole ride home. And I was like, I really don't know what I want, what that is in every realm. Like, I don't know what I want sexually. When you ask me that, I don't know why it's so confusing to me. It's so frustrating for me to not be able to see that clearly, but it's because I've been mom and wife and Grammy and all of these things to so many different people that I hadn't taken the time to just sit with it and be present in my own body and go, okay, April, what do you want? What would make you happy? What would feel good to you? What are your desires? What are your fantasies? I had no clue.
Well, and it's because, at least partially because we've all, and I think women even more so than men, but we've all been taught that when it comes to a relationship, the thing we need to be chasing more than anything is safety,
Right.
predictability. We're trying to control the relationship, which is always an illusion. We think we're in control, but you never know what is going to happen. We've gone through stuff recently where you could have never predicted it. You're not in control of your life.
Right.
But we chase that safety because it feels comfortable, and we chase it over or to the exclusion of authenticity.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it feels easy to say the safe thing, to express the desire for safety. It doesn't feel easy. It feels scary and risky when we start trying to express authentically what we actually want.
Right.
Because we're not taught to do it growing up.
Yeah. It can be very uncomfortable.
You can't build a life you love with someone else if you've only ever practiced wanting what made other people comfortable.
That's good.
I didn't make that up.
That's a quote from who?
I didn't even write whoever wrote it. Thank you. That was a really good quote.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. That's our goal, right? Is to build a life that we love with our partner or whoever it is. And you can go, like we've talked, had you never taken the boundaries off me and told me I don't have any limits for you, I'm still perfectly happy.
Yeah.
I don't need that to be happy in our relationship. But what Wild Love Theory is about is maximal happiness, right? So how can I be more authentic? How can I be more
this sort of stratospheric happiness, not just maybe day to day, normal happiness. We're talking about a different level.
Sure. Yeah.
Where you feel free and fulfilled and true to yourself at all times. And, because we're all constantly wearing masks. We put on a mask and try to act like somebody we're not. We're afraid to express what we truly want. And we can be happy somewhat in that. I mean, I think I'm happy and I think I've been a happy person my whole life, but up until you and I met, I've never really been able to be myself.
Right.
And so once I started experiencing that, not having to hide parts of myself, my happiness shot up we'll go from a 7 to a 9.5.
Yeah. Yeah. Non-monogamy can make your wanting or exploring your desires or voicing them a little bit trickier. One of the biggest myths about non-monogamy is that it makes desire easier. Like now you get everything you want, but the truth is that it kind of removes the script, right? So then you're no longer reading lines. You might even realize that you don't know what your real voice sounds like. And that is what
you say reading the script. You've removed the script, like society's script of, hey, one man, one woman for life, and you don't want other people and that sort of script.
Yeah. And it just kind of shakes everything. You're like, okay, well now what do I want? And it can cause kind of an identity crisis. I don't have this script anymore. Kind of when I talked about like a caged animal, like you remove the cage and now you're like, well, what are my parameters? Where are my guidelines? Where are my boundaries?
Yeah, that animal, the wild animal.
Where's my safety net?
Kept in captivity, but now doesn't want to leave the cage.
What does commitment look like? We have so many people that reach out to us asking how they should navigate the lifestyle. And that's the thing is there is no script. Everybody's desires and wants are different. Everybody's relationship structure is different. We've never met anybody that does the lifestyle or non-monogamy the same way as another couple. And that's the tricky part is you really have to figure out what that means to you as an individual so that you can navigate that with your partner. But you have to be able to have those real conversations where you're not afraid to say something that you want or that you need to your partner. Yeah. And that can be really scary in non-monogamy. What's off limits? What does success look like for our relationship? Longevity, exclusivity, stability. And when you step outside that structure and there's no built-in rules, it can feel like that means your desires aren't validated or not constrained by that.
Yeah, the ground you're standing on no longer feels stable. It's moving. And you've gotta move with it and balance, and it's different. It's harder.
Yeah. So when there's no script, you can freeze or start performing because this is what you think. And that's what I did. I moved into performance.
For me, basically.
Right.
So, you were trying to just go along with it so that I could have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I like this. Performing coolness instead of feeling congruence, which it means that you might act like you're totally fine with everything or think like, I'm cool. I'm fine with whatever. I don't get jealous because that's what you're supposed to say. I mean, we've seen couples before who navigate the lifestyle from an outside perspective. It looks like they're navigating it so beautifully and so freely. And we've talked to couples before, and you and I interview people when we meet through lifestyle. Like, we want to know, we ask all the questions, like, tell us from start to finish. How did you find the lifestyle? What were the questions? What were the problems? How did you get to where you're at right now? And we've met people who really have no boundaries, and it seems like it's so easy for them. And so it was easy for me anyways, I'll say personally, to look at them and go, okay, well, that's what I want. So do I just fake it until I make it? Do I just start saying yes to everything and pretend like I'm not jealous and maybe it will get better and go away? That is where I kind of got into trouble, because I moved into that performative role. But you start pretending that you want something that you're not ready for because you think that that's what being evolved looks like.
Yeah, I think I see this with guys a lot. They try to act cool and unbothered by everything. Oh, yeah, I don't care. She can do whatever she wants. And that's probably the case for a lot of people. But I don't know. Sometimes I feel like that's just a defense mechanism.
Well, I think that creates some internal fractures where your actions say yes, but your emotions are saying no. And for somebody like me who has always kind of powered through emotions and haven't historically taken the time to process and sit with my emotions, I just will power through and go, I'm fine until I'm not fine. That's where it can cause some real damage. And it doesn't give you the chance to really explore what your desires actually are, because you're just powering through to try and make everybody else happy.
Yeah. So anytime you catch yourself in any of these situations where you're saying, I'm fine, don't ignore that voice in the back of your head that's, saying, I want to be fine, but I'm not really. Talk to your partner. That doesn't mean you have to tell them, no, stop doing what you're doing because I feel some discomfort. Right. Sometimes it's good to have discomfort to be able to push through it, but it is critically important that you share that discomfort with your partner.
Well, and the thing is with jealousy, that jealousy isn't a bad thing. Everybody experiences jealousy. I think we talked about the difference between jealousy and envy. The goal isn't to eradicate all jealousy, right? The goal is to acknowledge it, to sit with it, to communicate about it, to find out, is there something underlying there that we need to kind of dig through and talk about?
Yeah, just because you're experiencing jealousy doesn't mean that the thing that's causing the jealousy needs to stop. Sometimes it does, but sometimes that's the growth moment where you go, look, like you say, I recognize that I'm feeling this jealousy. I'm gonna sit with it and feel it. And then we're going to talk about why I was feeling it, instead of doing the easy thing, which is saying to your partner, hey, that thing you were doing caused me jealousy. I never want to see you do that again.
Right.
Now, maybe there's completely justified sometimes to say that, but we just want to say that jealousy is not always a sign that something bad is happening.
Well, and I think I've been guilty of that, where something happened and my first defense mechanism is to go, what you did caused me jealousy, and so that is bad. Do not do that again.
Right.
And then as we took time to kind of work through it, and I took time to kind of sit with those emotions and figure it out, it was that's a me thing, that I'm struggling with jealousy because of XYZ, or that triggered something from past relationships or whatever it is. And I'm going to figure that out for myself, but it wasn't anything that you did wrong.
Yeah. Cause you run the risk sometimes of feeling like saying that you're open to things like, yeah, we're open. I want to explore all these different options. You can be open and still be dishonest.
Yeah.
You're not really saying what you actually want. You're just performing again and saying, well, you know what, we're open and we're willing to try things, without really expressing what your actual desires are.
There was a time not too long ago where we got invited to a house party, and it was some people not too far, a couple hours from us, were doing a house party, but it is a sex party. at their house. And I told you, I was like, we're going to go to this party. And you were like, what? Like, this is not something that you would ever say yes to. This is not something that you would typically like. And I was saying yes to it because I was feeling like I just need to rip this off like a Band-Aid. Like, I knew it was something that you would probably like. So I'm like, we're going to go. I'm going to power through. It's going to be okay. We're going to do it. Something ended up happening, thank God. And we didn't end up going because I think I would have had a horrible time, because that's just not something that I personally desire. It would be way out of my comfort zone. It's just not my typical.
Well, and I was thankful we didn't go to it because you did think that it might be something I would like, and it just was not something I wanted either.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, I don't know why you think this about me, but this is what I thought I wanted.
Yeah.
It's not what I enjoy.
Well, because it was one of those things where I'm like, well, we're in the lifestyle. I should be okay with these things. Like, look at these other couples who are good just with whatever. Like, their wives are going on separate dates. The husbands are separate dating. They're going to these play parties. And why do all of these people look like they're having a wonderful time doing these things and I can't do it?
Yeah, you hear stuff like that. Like, you're going to these, you're in the lifestyle. Why aren't you okay with this stuff? You can be okay with and not okay with whatever you want. I see people saying things like that about others going to Hedo. I see complaints on these groups on Facebook, like people complaining, I met 4 couples in a row at the nude pool at Hedo and none of them were in the lifestyle. Why do people not in the lifestyle go to Hedo? They're wasting my time.
Wasting my time.
I'm over there talking to them, trying to make a connection, only to find out I have no chance of fucking them. All right, well, you might be a little shallow, but that's fine. But don't gripe at people who don't see this journey the same way you do.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the mistakes. We're going to call this the 3 most common mistakes people make when it comes to desire and what they want. But one of those is mistaking relief for desire. So, for instance, you agree to go somewhere with somebody, and then some people get really, like me, if I have something on the calendar that we're going to go do, I'm not only excited about it, I'm looking forward to it and thinking about it every day until we get there. And then I get my feelings hurt if something happens and we don't get to do it.
Right. And I, on the other hand, if we have plans on our calendar, I put it in my calendar and I don't think about it again until 2 hours before we have to leave.
Or if you do, you start regretting committing
Immediately
to going
regret committing to going.
And so what can happen is a lot of times we're planning on going to an event or something. And maybe this is an event that's going to challenge us a bit.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a lifestyle environment where it's not exactly our comfort zone. And you start to get that anxiety built up prior to going. And then you cancel and you feel this huge sense of relief.
Yeah.
And you can equate that sense of relief with going, okay, obviously I'm really relieved for this. So it must have been what I actually wanted was to not go.
Right.
And that's not always the case.
No, because sometimes every new step is going to be uncomfortable. And that's where I think it can be a tricky line in really digging in and finding out, is this something that I really didn't want to do because I don't desire to do this? Or is this something I didn't want to do because it would make me uncomfortable?
Yeah. And that's not to say that relief isn't ever a sign that you made the right decision.
Right.
It's just sometimes I think we mistake relief as always being a sign that we made the right decision.
Right.
And that's not true.
Yeah.
Second mistake is adopting someone else's want or their wants. Sometimes it's just easier to want what your partner wants than to admit your desire is different, because now at the very least, you're not rocking the boat.
Well, and then you have a script, right? So if I'm just taking what your desires are and you're telling me in great detail what you want and how you want it to be done and how you would feel, it's easy for me to go, okay, I don't have to come up with my own script then. I can just kind of fall into that people pleaser mode and that the status quo, and I'm going to make my husband happy. And
same thing about going and picking a restaurant or which movie we're going to go see.
Right.
It feels like less friction. Mm-hmm. And it is often to just default to your partner's wants. But what can happen is over time, you start to build up resentment towards either your partner for maybe always getting to go do what they want, even though you wouldn't say what you wanted.
Yeah.
Or you kind of look back after 20 years of being in a relationship with a person and have no idea who you are anymore.
Yeah.
Because you've just never been willing or had the courage to be who you are. Mm-hmm. And now you've lost that person.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about it, especially that we had a lot of conversations after El Salvador about me not knowing really what I wanted. And I talked about when I had asked my ex-husband for a divorce, it was because I was just a shell of a human. I didn't know who I was, and I didn't want my children to see their mother just kind of going along with the status quo and not knowing who she was and stuff. And so I thought I would take this step, be on my own, and not that this is a bad thing, but I moved out of that marriage into a relationship with you, where you did allow me to explore what I wanted, but I still, because I was never forced to break those patterns. And so it was really easy for me to kind of fall back in, not as aggressively as I was in my previous marriage, into that people pleaser mode and do things for everybody else. And yes, I want this, but what do you want? Let's see how we can make, your ecosystem a little bit easier.
Yeah. Another sort of the opposite side of the coin of that last one is that believing that arousal or discomfort, either one, is some sort of mirror to truth. That I'm feeling aroused, therefore this is good.
Right.
Or I'm feeling discomfort, therefore this is bad. Sometimes that's true, but it's not always true.
Well, and you've said before, when I put a halt on all play for that year, you were like, but you were having fun, like you were having orgasms and you seemed to be enjoying yourself.
You mean just prior to that?
Right.
Yeah,
and I was like, yeah, I was in those play sessions that I was saying yes to that I didn't necessarily want to. Yeah, I was getting aroused. I was having orgasms. It just wasn't a fit. There was just something
on a deeper level. It wasn't what you really wanted.
On a deeper level. It wasn't hitting the mark.
And I could see this in my daughters. They would get little boyfriends when they were going through high school, and maybe they were the bad boy of the class, but they thought, well, this guy's hot, and that must mean there's something there, But it was obvious to anybody looking at the situation from a outside perspective that this is going to end in disaster.
Well, and it's not even that aggressive. Like when we were in those play sessions, I don't think anybody else would have been able to see, oh, that's probably not what she wanted. Nobody would have known that.
Right, yeah.
I knew that because I knew how I was leaving those play sessions going, that was not great for me. But everybody else in the play session thought it was amazing. And I'm like, well, maybe something's wrong with me. Maybe I'm missing it. Like they had a great time. Of course they would, but.
Well, and the other side, discomfort, and we've already kind of talked about this a little bit, doesn't necessarily mean that what you're doing is crossing a boundary or is wrong or something you shouldn't be doing. It might just be uncomfortability leading to potential growth. Or it could be trauma causing the problem, and you should get out of that situation. But we just have to realize that our emotions aren't truths in and of themselves. They're more like flashlights helping guide your way down the path towards truth. And sometimes they're a better indicator that you're on the right path than at others. But you shouldn't take your emotions as
gospel.
Yeah, as a dogmatic statement towards what's happening to you, whether it's right or wrong.
Right. So let's talk about how you can figure out what exactly you do want.
Okay.
That's where I'm at right now, figuring it out, because it's not a light switch. It's a process of kind of remembering, but it starts with learning how to listen to yourself in new ways. For people who are unlearning scripts, questioning defaults, and trying to tune into something deeper than social approval or fear, what can we do? When I imagine doing this, I will say, do I feel open or do I feel braced going into situations? So like, say we're going into a play party and we say yes, and then sit with it. Imagine showing up. Do you feel your jaw clenched and tightened? Is your chest tight? Does your smile feel a little off? Is that a no? Or is it just something that you need to explore a little bit? What about this excites me? And what about this scares me? And just being able to have that conversation. We've had those conversations, and I leave those conversations feeling so much better and feel like I have a knowing then, when I can say, I don't know about this, and this is why I'm feeling stressed. Is this my anxiety? Is this that I'm just really not into it? Or what is it about this situation that is making me feel these feelings, these anxious feelings?
And it's hard to differentiate between the times we're feeling the tightness in the chest, the butterflies, and knowing whether that is a sign that something problematic is happening, or whether it's just discomfort, it's something new and is the first step towards some growth. Because you can get butterflies in your stomach from something good or bad, and it feels exactly the same. It's just whether your mind is going to, what meaning you put to that thing. So it's not that an emotion necessarily means good or bad. Often we ascribe the meaning to that emotion after we experience it, and it could be a neutral emotion.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's called, in psychological circles, it's called embodiment. It's actually one of the 4 main pillars to my book, Wild Love Theory, where you're checking in with how your body feels, because it is a fantastic gauge for helping you navigate difficult situations.
Well, and that's a good thing. And I would encourage our 2 listeners to, if you don't already, start journaling. That's been a huge part of my process, is journaling and writing out, what am I feeling in my body right now? What does it mean? And what doesn't it mean? Sometimes I'll say no as a reaction instead of actually thinking through, well, why was my first reaction a no? Is it out of fear? Is it because I'm scared, anxious? Is it because I'm worried about what everybody else is thinking or what everybody else is feeling? Or is this really because it's a no for me?
Yeah, I did some interesting reading before this podcast about how the brain works, which is maybe one of the nerdiest things I've dug into lately. But neuroscientists are starting to believe now that the brain doesn't work in the way that we thought it did. Used to, the old model would say, hey, we're going into this lifestyle situation. You're at a bar, or club, whatever. And you look over and you see your partner talking to some attractive person of the opposite sex. And you start to feel these feelings of jealousy or whatever, chest tightening, stomach turning, that sort of thing. And what we think is happening is that our brain sees this activity and then interprets it and sends out emotional signals, and your body reacts to it. But really what actually happens is your brain functions more like a ongoing prediction machine, its own loop all the time, trying to predict what's about to happen to you. And when you're heading to a party, your brain has already unconsciously, and you don't know what's happening, already started to put in place these fight or flight responses, knowing that you're going to a place that could trigger emotions.
Right.
You're anticipating it based off your past history, things you've experienced before. And then your mind sees these activities through your brain's predisposed prediction. It's thinking, we're going to this, we're likely to run into problems. I'm going to protect us by helping you see things dangerous right away, even though that thing may have never been dangerous before. And it's not your fault. It's your brain's predictive modeling that you can't really control without a lot of self-work, and realizing that the things I'm seeing are being seen through my brain's predictions of what I think could happen. And it's not necessarily an accurate reflection of truth. And that is so hard because we just believe what we see.
Right.
When we have a strong emotion, it is so difficult. You can't reason somebody off of a strong emotion.
Right.
Even if every piece of evidence suggests that they're wrong in how they're seeing something, it's so hard to accept that.
Yeah.
Right.
So checking in with your body. The second thing is post-want reflection. So after you got the thing, or did I feel more myself, or did I feel less myself? And sometimes the only way to tell if something was really aligned is to look back and reflect on what just happened. Did I feel grounded, energized, peaceful, or did I feel hollow and anxious, or like I disappeared into myself a little bit? An example is you maybe just had that experience that you were curious about. Maybe you wanted to be with a woman for the first time, or play in a group, or be a dominant role, or a solo trip. If you felt more expanded or clearer, more embodied afterwards, that's probably a green flag. But if you felt small and you're kind of foggy about it, like, I don't know, I felt a little bit disconnected, like I wasn't in my body, then maybe that was a sign that that's just not something that is right for you, that aligns with you.
And so many times that happens, that we expect a situation to go badly, and turns out we had the time of our life, or you expect something that you're going to be involved in to be great, and it's just awful. And that hindsight is, if you'll take the time to sit with that hindsight and think through it, it can help help you navigate things in the future better.
Well, and the beautiful thing about the lifestyle is there's no right way. So you can try something and realize that's not for me. When I was exploring my bisexuality, I didn't know if I was going to love it. I had a feeling I would, but I could have had a play session with another girl and left that going, you know what? That wasn't for me, and decide never to do it again, or do it and go, that is 100% what I want. And you're never boxed into doing something. You can try things and realize, that didn't resonate with me. That's not aligned with my body and what I want and my desires.
All right. Number 3, desire without justification. So if you didn't have to explain anything to anyone, what would you want? This may not be a great example, but I feel like sometimes I do things a little bit differently in the house when you're not here.
Oh yeah.
I'll watch different shows. I might even do weird things that I would be embarrassed to do in front of you. I might be singing and dancing, which I wouldn't do if you were here, but
you do that when I'm here.
Yes. I'm just saying that, do you ever feel, not you necessarily, but I'm asking people in general here, do you change the way you act when you're alone?
Yeah.
And that's probably a sign that that's more you than the person you're pretending to be when others are around and can see what you're doing.
Well, we talked about after El Salvador, I told you, I was like, I don't know that I will be able to figure out exactly what it is that I want and desire while I'm in the presence of you.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked about me going away.
Which stung a little. Really.
I'm sure it did. That would sting if I heard that from you, but it's because I always have my feelers on when I'm around you and my kids and everybody else. And what do they want? Well, what's making them happy? And so it's been 20 something years that I've been alone without children. My oldest is 24. And so for a minimum of 24 years, I've had external factors that I had to think about. Like, how is what I want going to affect everybody else? And so I think for me to truly find what I desire, it will take me having a little bit of separation, a little bit of taking a step back and taking all of those other external factors into account. And we talked about me going away for a month for a sabbatical, but we're too poor to do that. So like and subscribe to the podcast.
Yeah. Or if you would like to donate to April's
1 month
sabbatical fund, please let us know. We'd be glad to help.
And I think just from talking to some women in El Salvador, some of our friends, a lot of women feel that same way, especially I'm 47 years old. Most of my friends they have businesses, they have children, they have grandkids, they've got a husband, they're caretaking their parents, they're doing all of this other shit. And then somebody says, well, what is it that you want? And it's like, oh, well, I don't know. Who has time to think about that?
Well, you see that when the last kid moves off and moves out of the house. And now the parents whose lives have been wrapped up in basically being parents and not much else now are floundering, trying to figure out who am I? What's next? Who am I? I've lost I don't even know what I want.
Or what my partner wants, because they fall into this kind of routine of just taking care of their kids.
All right, last number 4 here is this idea of a slow want. Sometimes it's good to just let not knowing what you want, let that uncertainty linger. Sometimes the answer is only going to show up when you stop rushing to try to figure it out. You stop trying to put answers in the place of that question when the real answer hasn't shown itself yet.
Yeah.
It can take time. Not knowing what you want isn't a big problem as long as you view it as an invitation.
Right. But it can feel like a crisis. That's where I was at, where I was like, I was legitimately panicked because we had been talking about wild love theory for months and months. And it felt to me, you were so clear on what it was you wanted. And you kept asking me what I wanted. And I was like, I can't give you a clear answer. And then I was getting frustrated at myself because I was like, why the fuck can I give him a clear answer?
Which goes right back to that opening little video snippet here from the
What
Notebook,
do
where
you
he's
want?
just screaming at her, what do you want? Over and over. And you would think it'd be the easiest question in the world. You're your own person, but it is diabolically tricky to figure out.
Yeah. And I think as a partner trying to help it, you've done a really beautiful job of this. You know that I'm doing the searching. I'm doing the work to figure that out. You give me the space and you allow me to say, I don't know. And I'm super frustrated. Sometimes I do need to talk it through. And sometimes I just need you to not talk about it so that I can sit with it on my own and journal and kind of figure out what it is I do want.
Well, it's been easier for me because I've grown up a man and I don't have as much of the pressure from society saying you've got to be a good mother. You've got to cook the meals. You've got to make sure they get to school. You've got to make sure they get to their practices. You got to make sure. And the guys don't typically face that in the same way women do. And so I have time to think, all right, while she's, I mean, this is not really true, but
right.
While she's doing all that stuff, I'm going to go golfing.
Yeah.
Today.
Well, I mean, it's little things like you do help around the house, but when we came back, you were like, you know what? I haven't been a 50-50 partner in the household stuff. And it was things like, well, why haven't I been?
And now I do like what, 80% of the household chores?
It's like 21.
What did 79. I start? Oh, that was good math.
Thanks.
What did I start out at before 21%?
Like 8%. I don't know. But it was things like you would do the dishes and I would thank you for doing the dishes. And I'm like, why am I thanking him for doing his own fucking dishes? Like he's my companion. And so I just kind of fell when we got together into that old role, I take care of the household things, but I'm also running a business and have children and grandkids. And so it's that unlearning that I'm still doing.
Yeah. And here we are doing a podcast episode about this, like we have got it figured out and we don't. We still sit around. These are conversations that we're having routinely now. Yeah. We're trying to map our path out because we are, one school year away from your youngest son graduating. All the kids will be out of the house, out of school, and we have a completely mobile business that we can run from anywhere in the world. And so in some sense, we have this freedom that allows us the opportunity to kind of go do whatever we want. I mean, not financially maybe, and we still can't figure out exactly what that would be. And it's just not an easy question to answer. And this podcast was as much for us as it was for anybody. Yeah. Try to start recognizing some of the ways we handicap ourselves and putting some of these tools into practice that can help us move forward.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a part of it that when I started asking myself that question, like, what is it that you want and why don't you know? And I started journaling and trying to kind of dig through all of the muck of the last 25 years and why I make decisions. That was a big thing, is me figuring out why I do things the way I do. Why are my thought processes like this? Why do I say no so easily? What is that about? And that is kind of a scary and hard thing to work through and it's not an easy process to figure out.
Something that's exciting for me is this process that you're working through yourself is part of your book.
Yeah.
Who Do You Think You Aren't?
Yeah.
Coming soon by April. And it's going to be interesting to see how you put that on paper so that other people can see your journey and struggle with these, questions yourself.
Well, when I first talked to you about that book, Who Do You Think You Aren't? Obviously a play on who do you think you are? Like people saying, well, who do you think you are? You're able to do this. And for me, it was like, well, I don't know who I think I am, but I know who I'm not. And that's a much easier question for me to answer than who do I think I am? What do I want? I know what I don't want. So trying to navigate that.
But that's a start. Right?
It is a start. Yeah. But to reframe, it's very easy, I think, for anybody to go, well, I don't like this, but I don't know if I like this. And so just trying to kind of dig through that and create that new system and figure out what I really do want.
And there's going to be conversations like this that we're going to do at our retreat, our men's and women's retreats, because this is a tough question, but it's a necessary question. It's something we all ought to be talking about, is trying to figure out what it is we want out of this life instead of defaulting to the scripts and routines we've been handed down from our upbringing and our community.
Yeah. Well, and as I talk to women who are moving into their second half of life or middle age, whatever you want to call it, it becomes like an awakening where you're like, I have lived my entire life doing what everybody else expects me to do, saying the things that people want me to say so I don't hurt feelings, and being this person, fitting in this box. And you get to a certain age where it's like, fuck that shit. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not living my life for other people to make other people happy. Because ultimately, I don't want to look back 2 years, 5 years, 10, 20 years and go, why was I living my life like that? And who did I actually make happy? Not myself. And I talked about this on one of my Instagram reels the other day, something that I've told my kids, and I don't remember where I heard this from. It was on some podcast, but I started telling them years ago, make every decision that you make so that you don't disappoint yourself. Don't worry about what I think as your mother. Don't worry about what your dad thinks if he's going to be disappointed, or your girlfriend or your partner or your teacher. Make the decision so that in 5 years from now, you can look back and go, I'm really glad I made that decision.
Yeah, and if you made it this far through the podcast, try this exercise. Just imagine yourself on your deathbed 30 years, 40, 50 years from now. If that were tomorrow, what things would you regret not having done? And if those things are reasonable to start planning and putting in place in your life, start that process and communicate that to your partner and say, I really want to do this before I die. I really want to become this person, go to that place, make this friend, whatever it is. Talk to your partner about it. Let them talk to you about theirs, and then start trying to figure out what would it look like? What would it take for us to get there?
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to, and I talked about this in my keynote in January, figuring out what your mission, vision, and values are personally, and what does your perfect day look like? That can help you figure out what your desires actually are. 5 years from now, what's your perfect day look like? Apart from everybody else in your life, how do you want to act? Where do you want to live? What do you want to eat for breakfast that morning? Do you want to sleep in? Do you want to wake up early? Are you working out? Or what are you wearing? What does it look like? What does your body look like? How do you feel in your skin? How do you feel when you're in the presence of your friends or your partner?
That's something we've done twice at least.
Yeah.
Just writing out, if we could snap our finger and have whatever we wanted, what would our perfect day look like? And I promise you're going to be shocked at how hard it is to do if you get really, really granular with it.
Well, and we write those separate from each other.
Yeah.
Your perfect day doesn't look like my perfect day, and that's okay. But we want to be able to write that perfect day, and then a year from now, look at it and go, does my life align with this still? And the few times that we have done it,
we've changed it every time.
We've changed it, but we've also reread it and gone, we're already there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'm already waking up and doing this, and I'm already feel like this in my body and think like this, and am surrounded by this kind of person. And
so if you're listening to this with your partner, that's two things you can do right now. Talk about what does your perfect day look like, and get super nitty gritty with it.
Yeah. I explain more of it in my keynote. I think it's like episode 39 or something, where I talk about your mission, vision, and values, and establishing what that is personally, and then writing your perfect day. And that's something that you do, an exercise that you can do once a year, every 2 years with you and your partner, and then come back a year later and reread that. And that really, and I'm still in a place right now where I'm like, I'm not exactly sure what I want, but doing that exercise gets me closer to that.
Yeah.
Closer to that knowing.
You start the conversation with yourself, and that's the first step.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think this has been good.
Yeah.
I hope you guys got some value out of it. And again, if you want to come hang out with us, party with us, go to an event with us, check out our website, naughtygym.com. You can become a member of our community, which is $20 a month. That gets you every workout, all the coaches' notes, demo videos, everything you'll ever need to get fit and healthy. Community access, the ability to chat with other members, and all sorts of other. We do live sessions on Wednesday nights, and it's just a great place to hang out and talk to people, like-minded people.
Yeah.
Or you can check out the events section of our website and see everything that's coming up on our calendar. And we've still got a couple of more to add next year.
Yeah, we're working on it. It's been slow because we've been going through the ringer for real. But we will get those other events planned. And don't forget to mark your calendar for August 16th. I think that's the date. 15th.
Which is also my birthday.
If you're in the Pacific Northwest, Matt and Cara are going to be hosting that Savi Island Nude Beach Day and the Pravada Club. They're having the Naughty Gym theme night. So all the details will be on our website soon. That is a free event. We like to just create community. We like to give space for people to make real, authentic connections, whether you're partnered or not partnered, you're welcome, as long as you are sex positive and not an asshole. Yeah?
Sounds good.
All right. So go to our events page and check out where you can connect with us. Join our community at naughtygym.com. And remember to never stop playing.